Everyone tells you to put the topwater baits away when the water gets cold. Your grandpa said it. The magazines say it. The guys at the tackle shop say it. Well, today I'm here to tell you they are all dead wrong. We're going to break down exactly why you should be throwing a topwater lure right now, even when there's a chill in the air. And I promise, by the end of this video, you'll understand the one key trigger that makes cold water bass absolutely smash a topwater lure, while everyone else is slowly dragging a jig on the bottom, catching nothing. This is the reason so many fishermen go home empty-handed during the fall and early winter. They're following a rule that should have been broken decades ago. So let me ask you this right now. What's the magic number for you? What water temperature makes you put those poppers and walking baits away for the season? Drop that number in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to see what the rule is in your area. So, where does this no topwater in the cold rule even come from? It's a belief that's been passed down from generation to generation of fishermen, and on the surface, it almost makes sense. The common wisdom is that as water temperatures drop, a bass's metabolism slows way down. They become lethargic. They sink to deeper, more stable water. And they certainly aren't willing to expend the energy to shoot up to the surface and chase down a fast-moving meal. We've all heard it. Son, once the leaves turn and you need a jacket on the boat, it's time for jigs, spoons, and slow-moving bottom baits. For decades, this has been the accepted truth. But here's the problem. While there is some truth to the metabolism argument, it's a massive oversimplification. It's a blanket rule that causes anglers to completely overlook some of the most exciting and productive fishing opportunities of the entire year. The fish are not unwilling to eat on the surface. It's just that most anglers are presenting the bait in the wrong way, in the wrong place, and at the wrong time of day. They're using summer tactics in the fall and getting zero results, which just reinforces the old broken rule. First, let's completely destroy the idea of a magic number. So many anglers live and die by the temperature reading on their fish finder. They have a number in their head, say 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and the second the water hits 59, the topwater box gets put away until spring. This is the single biggest mistake. That temperature reading is just an average for the whole body of water. It doesn't tell the real story. Imagine this scenario. It's a cold, crisp fall morning. There's steam coming off the water, and your breath is visible in the air. Every other boat on the lake is sitting out over deep water, staring at their electronics, slowly dragging something on the bottom. But the sun is starting to climb higher in the sky. It's beating down on a shallow, protected cove with a dark, muddy bottom. That sun is a powerful engine. It's creating a microenvironment that is completely different from the main lake. That 60-degree rule is not a law of physics. It's a guideline at best and a prison at worst. It's a guideline that keeps you from finding the fish that are actively feeding. You have to stop thinking about the whole lake and start thinking about specific small zones. Now let's talk about why those specific zones matter so much. The key concept to understand here is solar warming. It's a simple but incredibly powerful force. Objects with dark colors absorb and retain heat from the sun far more effectively than open, clear water. Think about shallow coves with dark, mucky bottoms. Think about riprap banks made of dark-colored rocks. Think about submerged laydowns and old wooden docks that have been soaking up the sun's rays for hours. These areas can be 5, 10, or even 15 degrees warmer than the main lake temperature just a few yards away. It's like a little oasis of warmth. And guess what's drawn to that warmer water? Everything. It starts with the smallest organisms, and then the bait fish, like shad and bluegill, move into these shallow, sun-drenched areas to warm up and feed. They are often disoriented and vulnerable, especially during the fall turnover. And where the baitfish go, the bass are never far behind. They aren't just there to feed. They are also taking advantage of the warmer water to raise their own body temperature and become more active, even if it's just for a short period. So, we have bait fish moving into these newly warmed, shallow areas. This is where the whole slow metabolism argument falls apart. A base is a predator, an opportunist. It isn't sitting there with a calculator, figuring out if the energy cost of an attack is worth the caloric reward. It's operating on pure instinct. When it sees an easy, vulnerable meal struggling on the surface, it reacts. It doesn't think, gosh, the water is only 55 degrees, I better not. It thinks, there is a dying shad right above my head, an easy meal I don't even have to chase. A topwater lure, worked correctly, is the perfect imitation of this exact scenario. It's not a healthy, fleeing bait fish. It's a wounded, struggling, can't-miss opportunity. The base has moved up from its deeper, cooler water-holding area into this shallow, solar-heated cafe. It's not looking for a marathon chase, it's looking for room service. And that topwater lure sitting right there on the surface is ringing the dinner bell loud and clear. Your job isn't to convince a lethargic fish to eat. It's to present an easy meal to an active fish that everyone else thinks is inactive. Let's put all these pieces together to form a clear picture. The reason topwater works in the cold is not because bass magically defy biology. It's because you, the angler, are smarter than the average rule follower. You understand that the game has changed. You are no longer searching the entire lake. You are on a mission to find very specific, isolated pockets of ideal conditions. You're looking for that perfect storm, a shallow area, close to deep water access, that has been getting baked by the sun for a few hours. You find a dark rock bank or a cluster of laydowns. The water is slick calm. You just know a big one is sitting there, soaking up that warmth, waiting for an easy meal to swim by. It's a completely different approach than summer fishing. It's more like hunting than just casting and reeling. You are targeting individual fish in high-percentage spots, not just covering water, hoping to run into a school. When you find one of these spots, you can feel it. The air is still, the water has that perfect look to it, and the anticipation is incredible because you know you are one cast away from an explosion. Okay, so you found the right spot. Now you have to use the right tool for the job. This is where many anglers who do try cold water topwater make their second mistake. They grab the same lure they were burning across the surface in July, like a big buzzbait or a fast-moving plopper-style bait. That's the wrong approach. Remember, we are trying to mimic an easy dying meal, not a healthy fleeing one. A cold water base is an opportunist, not an Olympic sprinter. It's looking for maximum reward with minimum effort. A fast-moving lure might just be too much work, or it might move out of the strike zone before the base can commit. You have to shift your thinking from generating a reaction strike to creating an opportunity strike. You're not trying to surprise the fish into biting. You are trying to convince it that your lure is the easiest, most satisfying meal it will see all day. This means slowing everything down and choosing lures that excel at a methodical, deliberate pace. This is a game of chess, not checkers. The lure selection is absolutely critical to your success. Let's start with the king of cold water topwater, the walking bait. Lures like a Zara spook or a similar walk the dog style bait are absolutely deadly in these conditions, and here's why. The magic is in their slow, methodical, side-to-side cadence. It's a rhythm that you control completely. It's not a constant retrieve. It's a dance. You can make it glide 6 inches to the left, pause, and then glide 6 inches to the right. This keeps the lure in the prime strike zone, right over that submerged rock or next to that laydown, for a much longer period of time. But the most important feature of a walking bait is your ability to pause it indefinitely. You can walk it a few feet and then just let it sit there, nose up, for 3, 4, 5, even 10 seconds. It's during this pause that most of your strikes will happen. I can't tell you how many times I've been working a spook, paused it, and just watched as the water underneath it starts to swell before absolutely erupting. That pause gives the bass time to come up, inspect the lure, and commit. Next up is another classic that truly shines in the cold, the popper or chugger. While a walking bait is about subtle gliding, a popper is about creating a very specific, attention-grabbing sound. Think about it from the fish's perspective. It's sitting under a log in a few feet of water. It's not actively hunting, just waiting. Then it hears a subtle bloop on the surface above. It's not a loud, aggressive sound. It's the sound of something struggling, something vulnerable. That single sound is a dinner bell. The key to fishing a popper in the cold is, again, the pause. This is not a pop-pop-pop reel retrieve. It is a pop. And then you wait. You let all the rings on the water surface completely disappear. Then you wait another second. Then you give it another gentle pop. This slow, deliberate process can drive a lethargic bass absolutely insane. It hears the sound, it sees the lure sitting there motionlessly, and its predatory instinct takes over. It's an easy meal that is making just enough noise to announce its presence. It's finesse topwater fishing at its finest. Let's not forget about a forgotten classic that can be a secret weapon, the prop bait. These are lures with small propellers on the front and or back. When you twitch them, the props spin and create a subtle sputter and a unique buzzing sound on the surface, perfectly imitating a dying shad or a struggling bluegill. Just like with poppers and walking baits, the prop bait is most effective when fished incredibly slowly. You cast it out, let it sit, then give it a short, sharp twitch. Just enough to make the props fizz and spit some water. Then you pause. Let it sit completely still. The beauty of the prop bait is that it offers a sound and disturbance profile that is different from anything else. On days when the fish have seen a dozen poppers or just won't commit to a walking bait, the subtle, sputtering action of a prop bait can be the exact trigger they are looking for. Imagine casting it right next to a sun-baked, half-submerged log on a cold, clear afternoon. You twitch it once, the props fizz, and you let it sit. It's a presentation that screams, easy meal. We've touched on this with every lure, but now we need to dedicate some serious time to it because it is, without a doubt, the most important part of this entire system. The absolute game changer in cold water topwater fishing is your cadence, specifically the use of the long pause. If you get nothing else from this video, get this. You have to slow down, then you have to slow down some more. And when you think you are fishing slow enough, slow down again. Summer topwater fishing is often about speed, covering water and generating explosive reaction strikes. Cold water topwater is the polar opposite. It is a game of extreme patience and precision. You are not trying to outrun the fish, you are trying to outweight them. Your mindset has to shift from cover water to soak the target. Weighing. Each cast is a strategic placement, and the retrieve is a slow, deliberate performance designed to convince one specific fish that your lure is real, vulnerable, and worth eating. If you continue to fish with a summer speed retrieve, you will fail 100% of the time. Let me introduce you to a concept I call the uncomfortable pause. This is the key that unlocks everything. You cast your lure, be it a spook, a popper, or a prop bait, to your target. You let the initial ripples from the landing completely settle. You give the lure one or two subtle twitches. And then you do nothing. You wait. You start counting in your head. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Your brain, conditioned by years of faster fishing, is screaming at you to move the lure. It feels wrong. It feels like you're wasting time. You fight the primal urge to twitch it again or reel it in. You push the pause to 5 seconds, then 7, then 10. This is the uncomfortable pause. It's in this exact window of perceived inactivity that the magic happens. The base has seen the lure land, it heard the initial commotion, and now it's rising up from below to investigate. It's watching, waiting. The long, uncomfortable pause is what convinces the base that the object is not a threat and is an easy meal. It's a mental game you have to play against yourself. So why does this uncomfortable pause work so well? Let's get back inside the base's brain. A cold water base is, at its core, an energy-conscious opportunist. It's not going to burn precious calories chasing down something that's moving quickly. It's just not a good investment from a survival standpoint. But a lure that splashes down, twitches a couple of times, and then sits perfectly still. That changes the entire equation. It's no longer a chase. It's a simple interception. The pause gives the base time to assess the situation and commit to the attack. It allows the fish to slowly rise up from its holding position, get directly underneath the lure, and inspect it. Your lure sitting motionless on the surface is the ultimate trigger because it represents a guaranteed meal with zero energy expenditure required for a chase. I've literally watched it happen in clear water. A dark shadow slowly materializes beneath my popper during a long pause, sits there for a second, and then the lure just vanishes in a boil. The pause gives them the confidence to strike. Of course, this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to learn to match your cadence and the length of your pause to the conditions of the day. It's about reading the water and letting the fish tell you what they want. On days that are slick, glassy, calm, and sunny, the pauses need to be at their absolute longest. The water is clear, the fish are more wary, and any unnatural movement will spook them. On these days, a 10 to 15-second pause is not out of the question. The twitches of your lure should be subtle and soft. Now, if you have a slight breeze that puts a little ripple or chop on the water surface, you can be a bit more aggressive. The surface disturbance helps to mask your lure and line, so you can use slightly quicker pops or a more continuous walk-the-dog action to get their attention. But even with a ripple on the water, the long pause after a series of twitches is still the #1 moment when you should expect a bite. It's a constant adjustment, a conversation between you and the fish. Now that we know the what and the how, we need to get extremely specific about the where. As we've discussed, you can forget about the main lake points and open water flats you fished in the middle of summer. Your search for cold water topwater bass needs to be focused on very specific features that absorb and hold heat. The #1 thing to look for is sun-drenched banks. In the northern hemisphere, these are typically the north and northwest banks of the lake, as they receive the most direct sunlight throughout the day, especially in the afternoon. Look for banks that have a steeper angle, as they absorb the sun's rays more directly. It's as simple as that. Find the warmest part of the lake. You can literally feel the difference on your skin as you move your boat from a shaded bank into a sunny cove. If you can feel the warmth, you can be sure the base and the bait fish can too. This is your starting point. All other factors build upon this simple foundation of finding the sun. Once you've located a sun-drenched bank, the next step is to find hard cover. Hard cover, specifically rocks and riprap, acts like a solar panel. Dark-colored rocks, in particular, absorb a tremendous amount of heat from the sun and radiate that warmth into the surrounding water. This creates a halo of slightly warmer water that is a magnet for base. A base will literally press its body up against these warm rocks to raise its core temperature. They use it as a recharging station. Docks, especially those with dark-colored floats or wooden posts, serve the same purpose. The key is to make precise casts that put your topwater lure as close to this cover as possible. You want to walk your lure parallel to a riprap bank or twitch your popper right next to a dock post. The fish are not going to be holding 10 feet away from the cover. They are going to be glued to it. Your lure needs to land in their living room, not on their front lawn. The more precise your casts are, the more bites you will get. In addition to rock, wood is another critical type of cover to target. Laydowns, fallen trees, beaver lodges, and submerged stumps all provide the same two key ingredients. They absorb solar heat and they provide excellent ambush points. A big sun-baked log lying in 2 feet of water is one of the highest percentage targets you can find for a cold water topwater bite. The base will tuck itself into the shady side of the log, using the wood for warmth and the shadow for camouflage, waiting for an unsuspecting bluegill or shad to swim by. This is where lure placement is paramount. You need to cast your lure past the target and work it back through the strike zone. For example, with a lay-down tree, you want to cast beyond the outermost branches and slowly work your popper or walking bait through the gaps in the limbs, pausing the lure next to the thickest parts of the tree trunk. The key takeaway here is that these fish have moved surprisingly shallow. While other anglers are looking for them in 20 feet of water, they are often sitting in less than 5, taking full advantage of the sun and cover. There is one more crucial piece to the location puzzle. The best spots will always have immediate access to deep water. This is the concept of steep and deep. A base needs a quick and safe escape route. It's not going to travel 100 yards across a shallow flat to find a sun-baked rock. It wants to find a spot where it can move up vertically with minimal effort. Look for areas like channel swing banks, where the main river or creek channel pushes right up against the shoreline. Look for bluff walls that get a lot of sun. Look for short, shallow coves that are right at the mouth of a major creek channel. These areas allow the bass to live in the stable, comfortable temperatures of the deep water, and then make a short, easy trip up to the shallow, sun-warmed areas to feed and recharge. Then, as the sun goes down, or a cold front moves in, they can just as easily slide back down into the depths. This combination of shallow, warm cover, right next to a deep water sanctuary, is the absolute perfect recipe for a cold water, topwater explosion. Let's quickly talk about gear, because a few small adjustments can make a big difference. When you're fishing a topwater bait in the cold, the bites can sometimes be less aggressive than in the summer. A fish might just slurp the bait down rather than explode on it. Because of this, you want to avoid a super stiff, heavy-action rod. A medium-heavy power rod with a more moderate or parabolic action is ideal. This softer tip acts as a shock absorber, allowing the fish to fully take the treble-hooked lure before you set the hook, which prevents you from pulling the bait away from it too soon. For your line, this is one of the few times where good old-fashioned monofilament is the best choice. Fluorocarbon sinks, which will pull the nose of your topwater down and ruin its action. Braid floats, which is good, but it has zero stretch. That lack of stretch, combined with a stiff rod, can easily rip the hooks out of the fish's mouth. Monofilament floats and has a bit of stretch, which provides the perfect buffer for those sometimes subtle cold water bites. Just as important as the where is the when. This is another rule that we need to completely flip on its head. In the heat of summer, the best topwater bite is almost always at first light and last light, low light periods when the bass feel comfortable coming up to feed. In the cold, the exact opposite is true. The early morning is often the worst time to be throwing a topwater lure. The water is at its coldest point of the day, and the sun hasn't had a chance to work its magic yet. The prime time for a cold water topwater bite is typically in the afternoon, from around 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is the window when the sun is at its highest and has had several hours to heat up those shallow banks, rocks, and laydowns. The water temperature in these key areas can rise several degrees, triggering a predictable feeding window. So, while everyone else is packing it in for lunch because the morning bite was slow, you should be just getting started, heading directly to those sun-drenched coves. This is a banker's hours bite, not a crack of dawn bite. Finally, we have to talk about the most important piece of gear you have, your mind. You absolutely have to have confidence in this technique. It is going to feel completely wrong at first. You'll be out on the water, your hands will be cold, and every instinct in your body, trained by years of following the old rules, will be telling you to pick up a jig or a drop shot. You have to actively fight that instinct. You have to trust the pattern and commit to it. I remember one specific trip where I spent 2 hours throwing a topwater without a single bite. I was about to give up. I told myself, just one more cast. I threw a popper right next to a sun-baked dock piling, let it sit for what felt like an eternity, and the biggest bass of the day absolutely choked it. That one fish completely validated the pattern and gave me the confidence to stick with it. You will have to put in the time and ignore the doubt in your head, but when it pays off with that first explosive strike, you'll be a believer for life. So let's put this all together and paint the perfect picture of what we're looking for. The mission is clear. We're on the hunt for the perfect storm of conditions that create a cold water topwater strike. It's a sunny afternoon, following a cold, clear morning. You've used your map and your eyes to locate a protected north-facing cove that has been getting blasted by the sun for hours. The back of the cove is shallow and has a dark bottom, with a beautiful-looking lay-down tree stretching out into the water. The main river channel is just a stone's throw away, providing that crucial deep-water access. You're armed with a walking bait tied to a monofilament line on a medium-heavy rod. You ease into the cove with your trolling motor on low. You make a long cast past the laydown, letting your bait land softly. You let the ripples fade. You give the bait 2 gentle twitches, making it glide side to side. And then you begin the uncomfortable pause. You wait. You fight the urge to move it. 10 long seconds pass. That right there, that moment of pure anticipation, is the moment of truth in cold water topwater fishing. So, let's put this all together. The idea that topwater is a warm water only technique is one of the biggest and most persistent myths in fishing. We've proven today that it's not about the lake's overall temperature, it's about finding those specific sun-warmed shallow areas where bait fish gather and bass move up to feed. The real turning point, the thing that will change everything for you, is realizing that you're not trying to trigger an aggressive reaction chase. You're presenting an unmissable opportunity. The painfully long pause isn't boring. It's the entire presentation. You're giving that cold, lethargic, but still hungry bass a meal it literally cannot refuse. This will change your entire fall and early winter fishing. While everyone else is shivering on the main lake, slowly dragging jigs for maybe 1 or 2 bites, you'll be in the shallows, experiencing some of the most visual and violent strikes of the entire year. And the best part? You'll likely have these spots all to yourself. Thank you so much for watching. If this broke a rule you've always followed, do me a favor and hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss more tips that go against the grain. Now I want to hear from you. After hearing all this, are you willing to give topwater a try on your next cold weather trip? Or do you still think I'm crazy? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a good debate going.